Right. I feel.
In a certain sense, Purim is like an immersion. Like you literally immerse yourself in an experience, and it's a very intense experience of like something changes. I think if you're in that situation in life and you have a whole bunch of kids and you're running around and you're trying to from Shalach Manas to one to the other, and then it's really, where's the experience in the which, by the way, the very little translation is one needs to get intoxicated on Purim, not get intoxicated on the day of Purim, but rather to get intoxicated on the Purim. Meaning, Purim should intoxicate you. If you get what Purim is an intoxicating experience. So it's not be a drunkard, be an alcoholic, and then drink so much to your heart's delight, and then on Purim just drink extra, and it's like a frivolous holiday. It's rather prepare yourself for Purim, get ready into the mode, and then when you immerse yourself in that Purim experience, something will shift. Something will shift. You want to get intoxicated on Purim, on the Purim experience, to the point that you don't know the difference between right and wrong, and you still say what's right and what's wrong. So what I want to discuss today is not so much, I guess, not as much Purim, as much as what Purim does to your life. The goal of Purim is to flip the script of your life. There's a Megillah, there's a story that's told. The story is told one way, it appears to be one thing going on. And then the question is, how do you flip the script? Because at some point, the whole story of the Megillah is flipped and something totally different to what you expected comes out. And wouldn't it be amazing to be able to experience the Megillah in our lives? The problem is that it doesn't just happen to you, you happen to it. Life doesn't just happen. Life is a script. That part just happens, yes, whether you like it or not. Time is moving, things are happening, it's going on. How you view the script, how you explain and translate and experience what's going on is up to you. And through learning how to flip the script and through an immersion in the Purim process, you can look at things differently, which makes the outcome different. And it may not be so easy sometimes to notice that, but that's really changing. The other day, I was learning with a group of seminary girls, and we were discussing this idea about flipping the script. And saying that, my question was, what I asked them was, what do you want? Like, what do you as a person, as an individual, want most in life? Because, I find that often we don't get asked that question. It's like, the question is, what does Hashem want of you? Hashem wants such and such. This is what Hashem wants from you. And then this is what you want of life. So I want such and such. And Hashem wants this. And I say to Hashem, if you give me that, I'll give you that. Let's make a deal. Right? I need health and happiness and money and my ambitions and all things I need. And you, Hashem, want me to keep Torah and mitzvahs. I'll keep Torah and mitzvahs for you if you give me. Isn't that what we usually say? No, how do you say it?
You should want it to be in line with each other.
Yeah. How do you get it to be in line?
You should want that whatever your desires are what Hashem wants. You want to be able to.
So you have to submit yourself. Well, are you saying submit yourself to Hashem's will? That means align your desires with His. Batel, the Mishnah says, Batel ritzoincha mipnei ritzoin, and nullify your desires for His. So Hashem wants something, align yourself with what He wants. That's what it means to be a Jew, a religious person, a believing person. Yes or no?
It Depends what level you are.
Make
Someone
your will my will.
who's not believing that it says, Hashem, I'll do good for you, you do good for me.
Right. So do you find that you might end up being, as a result, fragmented? Because you have your religious and Jewish life, what you do. You have your davening and your learning and your Torah and all the wonderful things you do in the mitzvahs and the chesed and beautiful things that you're doing. And then there's the things that you kind of like say, this I'm doing for myself. There's things I do for myself because I need it and I enjoy it and I want this kind of stuff. And this is my time.
You don't say that, Hashem. I'll only do what you want.
That's
That's
not
not
true.
what I want. No.
You
Say,
say,
make your will my will.
It's a very, what you're saying is very normal.
If I want to be rich, if I want to be rich,
Everything's going well in life, it's very easy to say, I'm going to do it, if you really want to be realistic. But when things are not going your way, not everybody says to Hashem, I'm still believing.
right. But it would be nice if you say to Hashem, even when you do things that I don't want to do, I still believe in you, Hashem.
Exactly, that would be ideal, but not
Yes.
everybody's on that level.
Or
Right.
give me this so that I can serve you better.
Right.
Your will, my will.
Some
But
people
I don't
say,
know about you.
"Oh,
I
that's
find
but not
that
everybody
whilst I want Hashem to make his will my will, in a way, it doesn't really work that way. And I have my will. I have my things that I want and my things that I need. And it's kind of like, that's my stuff that I need.
But Hashem wants to give it to you. So good luck.
Hashem wants to give it to me.
Yeah.
So if I want to go on vacation,
Yeah.
I'm in the mood for a good vacation.
No. So
Maybe Hashem doesn't want me to go on the vacation. Maybe Hashem.
listen, I think a person
How do you
has
know?
to ask himself what is right and appropriate, and everything is of course subjective.
Right.
But
How do you align the two is the question. How do you align the two, what you want with what Hashem wants? So I must tell you what happened.
What are you doing on this vacation?
no, if you have the Avoda that Hashem wants to give you,
Hawaii on the beach.
How are you doing?
In a secluded spot, by the way. It's near.
Are you looking at a coconut and saying, wow, Ma'av
No.
Or you just like, I'm gonna just chill out and veg out? I say I do.
All right,
I
great.
do. Like, what I was meant to see a factor like
Great.
salad, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Depends
Well,
on
anyway-
how you do it.
Well, anyway, so this was the question I asked the students there. And someone came to me afterwards and, she kind of like shell-shocked me. And she said, a very real moment. And I just think that it would be, incredible if we could say that it's only one person. But I think what she said was something which is indicative of a generation. She said, I'm not sure how to say this. I didn't want to say it in front of everyone, but she says, like, I don't want anything. And honestly, like, I learn and I daven and I feel nothing. I wish I could. I come from the best family and everything's amazing and unreal. I just don't want nothing. And you know what I really want? You wish she would say connection.
Right.
She said, what I really, really want, honestly, is to be dead.
The generation.
Why is she so? Why? What do you think?
I don't know, but it's like,
The punchful of the belt.
yeah,
It's really what the generation's suffering from.
a generation suffering from, I don't want anything. I just don't want to be alive, actually. Yeah, and it's a very scary thing when someone says, I don't want to be alive. So I was thinking like, wow, struggling with nothing. She says, nothing happened. I'm not struggling with, I'm just,
No kesher.
I feel no, right? I guess depression, maybe. I feel nothing. I just feel absolutely nothing. And my parents tell me that, like, what's wrong? You have everything going for you. Like, you're so special. You're so amazing. You're so unbelievable. You have the best family. Everybody loves you. You care so much and whatever. Giving.
Giving. Doing out of herself. Because then you start like a little bit of mix it up.
But she should have a
Right.
little help too. It's
Interesting.
very unusual. Most people, no matter what.
So, I think we need to do a little bit of, for ourselves, in our lives. I don't know, how easy it is. It's not simple. But I think that we want to do a little bit of flip the script. Basically, we want to take the script of our lives and flip it over and see things in a different light. And maybe this will be a guiding light for someone like this person. Not that we can answer all the questions in one go. It's hard work. But I want to provide a framework within which to operate. So the story of the Megillah is not meant to be a story of days of old. It's meant to be a very timely, real story of your life. And when you read the Megillah, it's actually embarrassing if you read it and you understand what you're doing. It's very embarrassing, the stories of what goes on there. I mean, it's like, that's what we gather to shul to read, seriously. All the girls of the world and Shushan get chosen by the king, and the king goes and detail for detail, like how he chooses them and what he does. And then, wow, so much going on over there. So, in fact, the Gemara has the whole discussion as to when does the actual Megillah begin. There's like the intro to the Megillah. Then there's when does the Megillah itself happen? And it's interesting that the Maharil, who's one of the codifiers, the Poskim, he writes that Balaylo Ahu, when you get to chapter 6, which is on that night, begins on that night, you raise your voice. Because on that night, in chapter 6 in the Megillah, that's when the story begins. Tokpoi shel nes. That's when the power of the miracle begins. Now, what happened that night? In context of the story. So, Achashverosh couldn't sleep. Interesting why he couldn't sleep. I would imagine the reason was because that night he had a feast. And at that feast was such a romantic evening, just him and his wife and Haman.
Yeah.
And he's like, why on earth is that guy in the meeting, in this date, like a date between me and my wife and Haman. Now, Haman went home and he felt on top of the world. He told his wife and his kids and all his friends, he tells them, oh, it was amazing. She didn't bring anyone else, just me. And tomorrow also another feast. That's great. And the king actually feels very jealous as a result. Why is he there? So he's thinking to himself, did anyone, if anyone wants to kill me, like if there's a conspiracy over here going on, who would save me? And so he's wondering, did anyone save my life and I didn't ever repay him? And out come the chronicles, and he says, Mordechai saved your life from Bigsan and Teresh who wanted to kill you. And what do you do for them? So he says, well, what do we do? Nothing. So let's do something for him. What should we do? So wouldn't it be the obvious next thing to summon Mordechai over and say, hey, Mordechai, you deserve a reward. What should we reward you with? And you assume Mordechai would say, how about don't kill me? How about,
Kill my people.
the Beis HaMikdash, my people, your queen, you stole from me. But for some odd reason, Achashverosh doesn't think of all that. He doesn't realize that's really going on. So all he says is, he says, what should we do with the man of the king wishes to honor? And he says, I'm not going to ask Mordechai that question. Instead, who am I going to ask? Haman. Lo and behold, Haman is out of his mind, but he's very excited and he's like on a high. And he comes into the king late that night after the feast, which he had. In the middle of the night, he knocks on the king's door. Imagine what the king's thinking. The guy I'm worried is going to kill me is knocking at my door in the middle of the night. Like, what does that bode? Not good for Haman, but Haman is oblivious to it all. And he comes in, and he says, okay, Haman, I want to ask you a question. And he preempts, Haman came to hang Mordechai on the gallows, and he preempts the whole story. And what does he say? He says, tell me, Haman, what should we do with a man the king wishes to honor? So Haman is right away, wow, that's a lot better than I could ever have expected. Of course, he's thinking the whole time, right, the king wishes to honor me. So he's like, well, and he spits it out right away because he's been thinking about it for a long time. Imagine what the king's thinking now. He wants to wear the royal garments. He wants to ride the king's horse and everything like that, and the crown on the horse. Wow, that's great. So Haman asks him, Achashverosh asks Haman. Haman answers. What does Achashverosh then tell Haman? He says, that which you said to do now, take that all. Take the horse, then the garment, as you spoke, and do it to Mordechai Yehudi. That is the moment that we flip the script. Until that moment, there was one script going on. Haman in his life had one script, the whole story going on. In his mind, he was convinced of one thing. At what point does Haman realize, this is not what I'm expecting? He doesn't realize just how bad it's going to get. But that moment when the king says to Haman, you are going to take Mordechai, what your innermost desires, you're going to give it over to Mordechai. That's the moment that the flip of the script takes place. Okay? And then Haman goes and parades Mordechai through the streets. What I want to focus on is the question of, what does this mean to you and me in our lives? Because this is not just a story about Haman, it's a story about you and I. And we once discussed about the Mordechai and the Haman. What I want to get into today is that also, but the horse. What's with this horse? You want to know what I really want? The king says to Haman, Haman, what do you want? Tell me, what's your innermost desire in your life? And Haman says, to ride your horse. He's like, wow, that's so exciting. That's what you want, Haman, to ride my horse. Why is that so exciting to Haman to ride the king's horse, right? Isn't that interesting?
Because then people look at him as being royal, noble.
It's very chashuv to ride the horse. It's an amazing thing. It's important. You feel good.
A step closer to actually getting everything.
Right. A step closer to getting the connection to becoming king makes sense. Right. But what does it mean to us in our lives? And why a horse specifically? There's many ways to get close. Maybe I want to sit on the king's throne. What does it mean to sit on the king's horse? So imagine now what we're going to do this ourselves. And try this out when you're reading the Megillah on Purim. Try it out. What you want to do is you want to think of the Megillah as a story of something that happened way back when, and B, a story of something that is happening to you now. And you want to make the Megillah happen. So you have to know who's the characters in the Megillah. King is Hashem. Hashem Yisbarach has a relationship with you. And what would you answer if Hashem Yisbarach, Hashem himself asked you a question and he said to you, he said, my dear, dear, dear human being, my dear child, because you're my children. He says, what do you want? And you have a moment to answer the king what you want. If Hashem, let's try and imagine. If Hashem comes to you now and says, I'm ready to give you anything you want, what would be the answer? You have to really tell me what your innermost soul desires. Because it would be a waste to say, I want some cookies and a vacation. Is that what you really, really want? Hashem's granting you your innermost, deepest wish. Shalom, peace. What? Happy, healthy children. Right?
Very, very cliche to say Mashiach.
What?
Is it so cliche?
Mashiach.
To say Mashiach, because I think that's the answer to everything.
Very nice. What else?
It's just everything.
Right? What else? What else would you say? Peace, Mashiach, good kids.
Focus to make the right choices.
What?
Focus to make the right choices.
Focus to make right choices. Amazing.
If Hashem reveals himself to the world, Mashiach's here.
Solves all.
We're done. It's
We're good
there's
to
nothing
go.
else to worry about.
Well,
Am I so wrong?
Yeah, amazing.
I'll just jump to the finish line.
Go straight to the finish line, you get it, right?
it's like in 10
Yeah,
minutes,
my
it's
horse.
like the genie.
Here's the thing. The king knows that if he asks your altruistic soul, if he says to you, what do you want? And he asks you in an altruistic way, meaning talking Hashem to your godly being, your godly soul, the answer is going to be something very godly and holy. You're going to say, I want amazing children, I want peace, I want Mashiach, I want all these amazing things you're going to say. Here's the story. The king asks you this question every single day. He does. He asks you the question. There's only one problem, that Hashem doesn't pose the question to your Mordechai. He poses the question to your Haman. And inside of us, we each have a Haman. So who's your Haman? Remember we said Haman is Haman ha'etz. The Gemara says Hamin ha'etz, but there's no vowels in the Torah. So when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, Hashem says to Adam, did you eat that tree? I told you not. That's the one you ate. So he uses the word Hamin ha'etz, Haman ha'etz. Haman is the tree of knowledge, which means in our lives we know good and evil. We get into this space of life, what you are, what you want, the things that you want, the good and the evil mixed in together and blended. And the king turns to Haman and he says, what do you want? If you take a look at what happens in life, you answer that question every single day. You get asked that question and you answer it. Every time you say, I want something, and you start working towards that goal, that is the king asking you the question, and you just answer the question. What do you want? It doesn't come out so dramatic. There's never drama. You never realize that he's even asking you. But you wake up in the morning and you say, like, I want to have a coffee. What just happened? That's the king asking you, Haman, what does he want? And you get asked questions all the time. And you make decisions all the time. And those decisions that are being made, those desires, those things that you want, are placed into your mind and into your heart by Hashem. And it's interesting how from one day to the next, you ask for different things. From one moment in the day to the next moment, you ask different things. From one generation to another one, you ask different questions. Like, for example, if we go zoom out, right? Look at how different generations answer this question. So there was a generation of back in the day, let's say, Tanoim and Amiroim. Right? In times of the Mishnah and the Gemara. Can you imagine what people lived with? What was considered? What do you want? Nobody would say a vacation in Hawaii, since there's no airplanes and there's no Hawaii either. They don't even know that it exists. It doesn't exist. The whole thing's not there. So what would you want? Those people lived a different life to what we live today. Every generation is so different. See, in those times, for example, you know the problem nowadays, that why can't we learn Torah as well? Because everything's written in the book. That's why. You can't help it. It's printed. So if you have a printed Gemara in front of you, right? So when you're learning, you don't have to actually know the stuff, because even if you don't know it, it's still written down in the book. So what's the worst case scenario? If I didn't understand it, okay, look back in the book. Imagine you're Abaye and Rava, and you're learning a piece of Gemara. And you know that if you don't remember detail for detail what it said, what's going to happen to you? The whole thing will be lost. Because it's Torah Shabbat Peh, it's oral Torah, it's in your mind. So it's all in your mind. So you meet your friend, what do you talk about? You have no idea about the news, because there is no news. So what do you talk about? You're like, I learned this and this and this. And he says, I learned that and that. And then the two of you get together and there's like this conversation. I learned this, you learned that. And then we're arguing about what we each learned. Right? And so conversations happen around Torah, the whole thing. And then you have to remember, you say, by the way, I'm listening to you, and there's one detail in what you're saying, one little detail that doesn't make sense, and your whole building gets dropped. So you have to understand the whole sugya, the whole tractate, everything you're learning, and you have to be able to narrow down one little point you missed out on. Then you have to explain them the whole thing in a different way. Can you imagine how much brain power you have to have and how much brain power you're using? People were living on a different plane. And if you go back a few generations before that, let's say the times of prophets, like, for example, Shmuel HaNavi. People weren't doing that. They weren't learning the Gemara and then arguing like that. It was a different kind of learning. How were they learning? It was called prophecy, Ruach HaKodesh. So they were like connecting to Hashem. Wish I knew what that meant. Some of them became Nevi'im. What do the rest of them become? There's some big prophets, right? Like the famous ones. There's Shmuel HaNavi, there's Shayahu HaNavi, Yirmiyahu HaNavi. And then there's, the small books of very big prophets, like Habakkuk and Nahum and Yoel and Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, etc., etc. The rest of the people, many of them at least, were called B'nai HaNevi'im. What's B'nai HaNevi'im? Children of the prophets. It's called wannabe prophets. Some people were prophets. Everybody else was working their way towards becoming a prophet. And then Shaul, one day, they say about him, Hagam Shaul B'Nevi'im? Wow, he became a prophet. Different era, different times, people reacting in different ways. Prophecy. And then there's, if you go through history, there's the period of the Geonim after the Gemara. And then whoever was learning Torah was a different thing. They were writing the script of what's going to happen, right? Of like people like Rav Natronai Goin, Rav Hai Gaon, Rav Sadia Gaon, the Machzer Vitri. These were all people writing down and committing to writing like the Jewish way of life. They wrote down the Siddur and the Machzer and the Takonis and different enactions they were putting together. And then a few generations later, is the Rishonim, the likes of the Rambam and Rashi and the Rif. What were they doing? They were codifying what happened in generations before. So even within Torah learning, every generation is so different. So I'm going to ask you, what's the thing today? How do we find Hashem today? Every generation has a way to relate to Hashem. A generation of what is your connection to Hashem? What's it today? What? Interpreting. Right? Interesting. In Torah, what we do is we basically today, if you want to write a Torah book, what do? You put together what other people have said. Right? But would you say that most people are like liggen in Torah? That people are rooted in Torah? You sit down and you learn the shir, the daf or whatever. Some people do it properly. But many of us, we just do it to be able to put a bumper sticker on the car saying, I finished Shas. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. But we're not Tanoim and Amirayim, right? We're just not on that same level, nor are we Rishonim or Achronim. But do you think there's anything we can do better than other generations? Is there anything we can excel and shine? And that can be our thing. This is what we are.
I think this generation needs a lot of acceptance. That's our version of Torah.
Right. But I'm asking you, where do we shine? That no generation in history could measure to us. There you go. Chesed. Chesed. Find me any generation in history which had as much money as we do today, and has had as many capabilities, right, in terms of technology, the phone and doing whatever, and people, what they're doing day in, day out, just doing chesed. I spoke to an accountant the other day. So he told me he has a guy who made incredible. He said the guy made a profit last year of $35 million. And he says, the IRS, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't have these problems, but the IRS had this issue that you can give, I don't know why during COVID, but you're allowed to do 100% of your earnings to charity and it'll be recognized. So he okay. So he took 100% of his $35 million earnings and gave it away to tzedakah. Like, he says, I have money from before. What am I going to do? Fly another private jet, do that? So he took the whole $35 million and gave it away to tzedakah. I was like, and his accountant's like, wow. I don't know, he didn't tell me, but I'm saying that didn't happen in previous generations. Like, what? People give tzedakah like it's really insane. I mean, yeah, we just came out of a campaign in the last couple of days, which was,
Successful.
unbelievably successful, but insane. It's like you have to immerse yourself in this. It's like you go in the mikveh and you go underwater and you stay there for a long time, or you go into a washing machine. That's what it felt like. You go into this thing, but to watch people just come out, they're like another campaign, another one, and you say, wait, and then they give, and they keep on complaining, why another one, and then they give. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's not something to be taken for granted. Abaye and Rava, Hillel, let's say, right? He was trying to figure out what to do with one kopek, one little dime that he had, like what to do with it. And Rabbi Lezer ben Harsan was the wealthiest guy. I'm wondering how wealthy was he compared to generation today. I think that we have an incredible abundance. And I think that sometimes people who have nothing today find themselves giving so much stock, relatively speaking. And it's not just in matter of money. Just look at the chesed, like this community has, the Jewish community has so many organizations for anything. You name it, there. Someone's made an organization and we're doing it, helping out. What happens on Purim over here is unreal. People open their houses, just like, what are we doing? It's like opening your house, by the way, to get covered, to feel honor, no question. But what do you want to feel honor in? That I wrote out more money than you did to tzedakah. No, it's really unreal. Tzedakah that goes on in finances and in giving of yourself, waking up in the middle of the night on a tzollah call and going on, people going when someone dies, chas v'shalom, and then to have to do sometimes hard work you have nightmares from afterwards. They do it. It's unreal. It's really, really, really unreal. Every one of these generations has a mechanism and a tool by which we ride our connection to Hashem. When you give tzedakah, your neshama shines. That's why it's so difficult sometimes to give it. And you're like, why am I giving away this money? It's my money. When you give away the tzedakah, your soul comes shining through. When you wake up in the middle of the night to do chesed, to do kindness for another Jew, your neshama is on fire. Your neshama, your soul is looking to be connected to Hashem. It's looking to ride a connection to Hashem. We're going to use a metaphor of a horse. See, if I'm here and I want to go there, in most of history, the way to get there was using a horse. Yeah, with gas today, maybe we're going soon back to horses. So you ride a horse. What does a horse do for you? He carries you from one place to another one. The word horse, you spell it out, samach, vav, samach, sus. What's a sus? A sus is a samach. I have a samach here and a samach here. Yeah, looks like a wagon, that's also true. But here's what you have, a samach here and a samach here, and you have a vav in the middle. Now the vav in the middle, what's the numerical value of vav? 6, right? 6 is a gimel and a gimel. 3 and 3. If I take a samach and a samach here, and I put a gimel and gimel on top, that's a horse, that's a sus. What's a samach and a gimel? The word is gas. What does gas mean? Coarse. Gasus is coarseness. Dak and gas. Dak is the opposite of gas. Coarse. So Gasus is your coarseness. Every generation has a gasus, coarseness. It's like, what do you want? No, I don't want to know what you want in an abstract way. What do you want? That's your gas. That's your coarseness. It's what you actually want. And what happens is, what you want and what Hashem wants meet together. Hashem says, I'm asking you what you want. And what you answer at that point, what you actually want, becomes samach and a gimel from above, a samach and a gimel from below. It's a sus. We're not riding there, we're riding there. We are riding up to Hashem. He's giving us his gas, and we're giving him our gas. In other words, I'm telling you what I want, and I want to align that with Hashem, what you want. You get it? That's the sus. Make sense? So a sus is a samach and a gimel from Hashem, a samach and a gimel from me. That's the sag and the gas meeting together. That becomes a sus. Every generation has the way this generation relates to Hashem. It's unique, it's special, it's only you, only in your generation. No other generation ever did what you can do. And when you analyze and you look at what's happening in your time, in your generation, and you see what you want, what your coarseness wants. You know what you want nowadays, probably more than anything else people want? Is to be rich. To make money, no? No, I don't want to make money. I just need to pay, $100,000 on tuition and $60,000 on my mortgage, and and I live from community, and then I need to buy matzah. That's another $40,000, and yeah, but I need money. It's fine, but you can't really survive without $250,000 before you begin. Now I want to become rich. Most people look at that kind of money like, what? What you want in every generation is dictated by what goes on around you. By the way, it's not only in generations, it's every single day. In your day itself, there's a different horse you ride. In the morning, you're riding a horse called davening, I hope. Later in the day, you're riding a horse called work. And every single moment and every single little epoch, every generation in your life, in your day, certainly as you go through life in different stages, you're one stage of your life, you're a parent of children, you're a child yourself, you grow older, you become a senior citizen. Every time there's a different way, and it's a different way of how Hashem and you get a connection. That's the horse you're riding on. So the king comes over to Haman. He says, Haman, Mordechai will never tell me what he really wants. He'll just start saying things like he wants, holy stuff. Shiach, good kids, and peace. It's amazing stuff. So I don't want to ask Mordechai the question. Haman, I want to ask you the question. And I'm going to keep on asking you the question. And I want you to pay attention that I asked you the question, because sometimes you don't even notice that I asked you the question. And what you want all the time is a gift from Hashem. It's instilled in you from Hashem. And that's what I want. What does Haman want? What do we all want? I want the king to give me the horse.
Honor.
Well, before honor. Do you want honor?
He wants it. Go on the horse.
I want the king's horse. And I want to be able to get on the king's horse and to ride the king's horse. And I want to put the king's crown. It seems to mean the king's crown is on the head of the horse.
On the head of the horse.
You know what I want in my life? What I want, what I'm dying for, what I'm chalishing for, I'm going crazy over, is I want to know that what I'm doing is meaningful. I want to feel fulfillment. I want to feel that the horse I'm riding on in my generation, in my life, in my own period in my life that I'm going, in my own day to day, in my own moment, I want to know that I'm doing something worthwhile and meaningful. Isn't that the innermost quest of every human being? It's like to overcome mortality. We just live and die, and it's so dumb. Like, what was the point of that? And what I want, Hashem, more than anything else, is tell me that what I'm doing is worthwhile. Not you tell me. Make me feel that it's worthwhile. Make me feel that my life is special. Not always can you get what you want. Sometimes you're in a position that things are difficult. It's hard. When it's really, really hard, I think what we want to know more than anything else is that the struggle is worthwhile. And when I'm doing something that's frivolous, I want to know it's meaningful. I'm just remembering. There's a guy, I met him, I'm very friendly with him. Great guy. How did I meet him? Because he once came and he wrote, out of the blue, he sent a check with someone to my extended family, to the organization, and he said I sent a check a bunch of years ago of $10,000. I said, wow, it's so nice, out of the blue, like what's going on? So one day I went to meet the guy, and he said, oh, my basketball rabbi. I'm like, oh. So I come from South Africa, by the way. If you want, we don't do basketball. I'll give you soccer, I'll give you cricket, rugby, but basketball, no. My basketball rabbi. I said, why am I a basketball rabbi? He said, I'll tell you what happened. I went to Ohio or somewhere like that. He says, and I had this strong taiva desire to go there. So I went there. And we made a business deal with this guy, a partner. And I said, let me take you over to this, the game. And I got box seats and we flew in a private jet and we did the whole thing the way it's supposed to be done. We got the right food. Everything was amazing. It was like we went for a weekend. It was just unbelievable. What an amazing weekend. And, and I came back, I flew back on the private jet. And when I arrived home, you know what I felt like? Empty. Like, what on earth did you just spend? I said, I could have bought a down payment on a house with the amount of money I spent there. And I felt so ridiculous. And I was sitting with a group of friends of mine, and one of my friends said, you know what? What you need to do now is take an amount of money like you've never given before and give it to tzedakah. He says a $10,000 check was about 10 times more than the biggest check I've ever written in my life. It was the first check I wrote, a real check. So, and I wrote it over to you. It's like to be mechaper, to atone, to feel good about myself. Like you can pay for everything with money, even atonement. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel worthwhile. I got him a plaque, by the way, with a basketball. And saying thank you. But I'm saying that you understand there's an emptiness that we feel. And I want to feel good about myself. So here's what happens. The king asks you all the time, what do you want? And the answer you say is, I want to ride the king's horse. What's the king's horse? Every generation has something special for that generation. I want to ride on that. I want to feel that the king's crown is on that horse. And the king said, that's great. That's exactly how I want to reward my Mordechai. Haman, go take the horse and the garment. And do that to Mordechai. Don't drop one word of what you just said. That means what I want you to do is to start looking at your life. Now, Haman and Mordechai are joining, right? We said to align them together. So my inner Haman, he wants just to have a good time. What does my Mordechai want? He wants holiness, connection to Hashem. Connection to Hashem you will find where you are. Exactly where you are, you'll find that connection to Hashem. When you look into your life, into where you are right now, right this second, you will discover the most beautiful, intimate, incredible connection with Hashem. Where? Here. Now, as Hashem tells Moshe, Hamakom asher ata omed alav adamat kodeshu. The place where you stand is holy. If you have a desire for a lot of money, go for it. Make a killing. If Hashem grants you. And as he does that, ascribe it all to Hashem. Don't let your Haman take over. Haman, what do you want? What's your ambition? Whatever your ambition is holy. Whatever you want in life is a holy, holy space. Hashem put it inside you. Hashem asked you the question of what you want. And then Hashem helped you to get where you got to. The good and the not so good. And it's about being able to look at any situation that happens, whatever goes on, and to say, Haman wants a horse. The reason he wants grandeur and power for himself. That's what he wants. But don't look at it as something negative. Take your Haman and say, okay, what do you want? What do I really, 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 really want? And flip the script. And that's what the king says. The way we connect to Hashem is by flipping the script. The script says that Haman wanted something. The king says, take that and give it to Mordechai. I didn't ask Mordechai what he wants. Note, you never ask Mordechai because he won't give you the answer. What you want is what you want. So Mordechai wants Mashiach. You know how you get Mashiach? By flipping the script of your life. By living your life in the most incredible way possible. Because that brings Hashem into the world. That is how you bring Mashiach. I think that one of the biggest issues today is people not wanting to live.
Not wanting to live.
It's not only a younger generation, by the way. Many people have this, I don't want to be alive. And I was just thinking about it. Maybe there could be a lot of trauma involved, a lot involved in it, but maybe just for starters, as a beginning of a conversation, maybe flip the script on that story. Maybe that's a horse to ride, to connect to Hashem. Because when your Haman is saying, I don't want to be alive, I just don't want to live. Maybe there's another way to look at it. Maybe you put your Mordechai on that. Maybe it could mean, I don't want to live this way with no meaning and no purpose. I want to live a special life. I want to live a life being connected to Hashem. And maybe even when I'm learning Torah, if a student tells me, I'm learning Torah, I don't feel Hashem there. Maybe what that means is, I'm learning it and it feels like something which is just abstract. I don't feel God here. Can you help me feel God? If we could just look at ourselves as success stories, instead of thinking, I'm such a loser, the king is asking you this question. Hashem, if I feel right now, if my desire is to be dead, God forbid, that's Hashem guiding me. And it's not about being dead. It's about being more alive than ever before. Maybe it's not a desire to be dead. It's a desire to be alive, a real life. That this life that I'm living now is not real. I want more out of life. And maybe if I start thinking of myself as special, that, the fact that I'm not buying into this is actually incredible. It's actually unbelievable. You're unreal because you want something more. And maybe the second I flip the script, if you look at the Megillah, right, nothing actually happens then. Nothing happens. Mordechai was paraded on the streets. And then what? Mordechai went right back to his fasting and sackcloth. And Haman went right back to thinking he's going to hang Mordechai on the gallows. God forbid. The story was flipped later. But the Maharil says, when you get to Balaylo Ahu, you already raise your voice. Because that's Tokpo Shel Nes. You know when the miracle happened. The miracle is the day, the moment the king can't sleep and he wants to be with you. So if you look back, what happened? Mordechai gathered the Jews and they said, Hashem, we love you, we care, we want a relationship with you. That's the part that you do. You say, Hashem, I want a relationship with you. I'm feeling nothing in my life. I'm feeling empty. I want a relationship with you. And then the king can't sleep. Hashem can't sleep. And he says, I want you too. I want a relationship with you. And when that happens, the king goes over to your Haman and he says, now what do you want? And you tell him what you want. It might not be pretty sometimes. And he says, flip the script. That which you want now is me. So what is our Avoda on Purim? An immersion in Purim. In a realization that Hashem is everywhere and in everything. And as you feel the Purim, as you're going through that process and the washing machine of Purim, the Chaya Vinish Levasume, you feel immersed in it sometimes. It's about the ability to see Hashem, I just want a relationship with you. And you feel, Hashem, connect to me. I want the relationship with you. And when I feel that, Hashem comes back and he says, where you are is where the relationship is going to happen. And if I can then look at my life and say, wow, this is a place where I can bring Hashem, I'll see opportunities all over, every moment. And the script gets flipped.
Thank you. Wow.